I took the job because I didn't have a lot of options. 3 months ago, I got laid off from my warehouse shift and ran out of excuses for my landlord 2 weeks later. Since then, I've been crashing in the back of my cousin's auto shop, curled up on a cot next to half-dead tires and empty oil drums. I wasn't looking for something permanent, just cash. Off the books, if possible. So when I saw the flyer posted at the gas station bulletin board, black paper, white lettering, torn edges, I knew it was weird. But weird doesn't mean no. The flyer read, night cleaner needed. Discretion, required location, street, Elyria Chapel. Middle Ridge, $350 per night. Cash no questions. Text only. Will provide supplies. Do not bring your own. Middle Ridge is the part of town no one really talks about. Not in a sinister way, more like it slipped out of everyone's memory. Abandoned hills, crumbling farmland, no cell service. I had to borrow my cousin's GPS unit just to find the chapel. The first time I saw it, it looked like it had been asleep for a century. The building itself was slate gray, sunken slightly into the earth, like the ground had softened beneath it and never rebounded. Vines clung to the stained stone walls. A cracked bell tower leaned like a crooked tooth against the dusk sky. No lights, no vehicles, just the shape of a place that didn't want to be found. But someone had left the front door open, not ajar, open. Inside, the air smelled like wax and mold. The pews were cracked, warped from age and water damage. The stained glass windows were intact but dull, as though the light had stopped trying to shine through them years ago. And at the front of the church, where the altar should have been, there was instead a black, tar-stained slab of stone. Above it, bolted to the wall where the cross once hung, was a cluster of animal bones bound together in what looked like a vaguely human shape. It was arranged with unsettling precision, femurs like arms, a pig skull for a head, vertebrae forming a spine that dangled slightly forward, like it was bowing. I stood in the doorway for too long. I didn't want to go any closer. But then a voice behind me said, "You showed up, good." I turned. A man in a gray raincoat stood in the shadows of the vestibule, late 50s maybe. Gaunt face, yellow eyes. I hadn't heard him walk up. He didn't offer his name, didn't ask for mine. "You'll come here between 11:30 p.m. and 4 a.m., he said. "You'll sweep, mop, wipe down the benches, and dispose of any leftovers on the altar. Don't clean anything before or after those hours. Don't ever move the bones unless you're told. That's not your job." I waited for him to explain more. He didn't. He handed me a ring of keys, pointed at a locked cabinet near the back pew, and told me all supplies would be inside. Then he was gone. No contract, no ID, just an unspoken understanding. That night, I started my shift, and in the 3 nights that followed, everything went exactly as expected, except on the 4th night. Something was wrong. The bones had moved. The 4th night started like the others. I parked on the gravel shoulder, just off the tree line, where the road turned into a dirt path. No lights, no cell signal. Just the chirping of insects and the soft rustle of the pines leaning in around the chapel. When I stepped inside, the temperature dropped. It always did. The chapel held the cold like it was something sacred. I clicked on my flashlight and made my way down the aisle between the pews. I'd developed a rhythm by then. Unlock the cabinet, put on the gloves, sweep from back to front. Mop in figure eights, scrub wax stains off the floor near the altar, then bag up anything left from the rituals. They never told me what happened here before I arrived each night. I never saw anyone come or go. But there was always something left behind. Candle stubs melted into pools of black wax. Chalk circles scrawled into the floorboards. Feathers ash, sometimes blood, dried and dark, streaked across the altar slab like a signature. And always the bone figure. 3 nights in a row, I never touched it. I wasn't supposed to. It hung perfectly still above the altar, suspended by fishing wire and iron nails. The pig's skull stared forward, jaw slightly parted, like it was mid-sentence. But on the fourth night, something was off. The bones were different, not just moved, rearranged. The skull was tilted toward the back pews, as if watching me. The spine was stretched, almost doubled in length, and 2 new ribs had been placed over the chest cavity, carefully wired into place. They hadn't been there before. I was sure of it. I stood there for a long time, staring at it. Then I heard the tap-tap-tap of something behind me. When I turned around, I saw the man in the raincoat, my boss, I guess, standing at the threshold. His face was in shadow. I hadn't heard the door open. "You didn't move them, right?" he asked. "No," I said. "I just got here." He nodded once. "Good. That means we're on schedule." He stepped inside, pulled something from his coat pocket, and placed it on the altar. A folded piece of paper. He didn't unfold it. "This is your rule list," he said. "You'll follow it exactly from now on, every night. No exceptions." I took the paper and read it as he watched. _St. Illyria Chapel, Night Cleaning Protocols. 1. Never enter before 11:30 p.m. Never. Stay past 4 a.m. 2. Do not speak inside the chapel. Whispers are heard. Voices are invitations. 3. Do not move the bone figure. Its arrangement is not for you to change. 4. If the bones rearrange themselves, document the changes but do not react. It's testing you. 5. Leave any new offerings on the altar untouched. You clean after, not during. 6. If the door is open when you arrive, knock 3 times and wait 10 seconds before entering. If you hear someone say "come in," leave and return in 1 hour. 7. Don't clean the stained glass window of St. Elia. It's no longer just glass. 8. If you hear footsteps from the bell tower, lock the cabinet and remain still. Do not look up. I looked up from the list, confused. "This isn't a joke?" I asked. He didn't smile. "Does it look like it is?" I stared at rule number 8. The bell tower hadn't made a sound since I started. I hadn't even considered going up there. "Who's upstairs?" I asked. He didn't answer, just turned and walked out again. That was the last time I saw him. After that night, I followed the rules. Every single one, at least. I tried to. I stopped humming to myself while I worked. I stopped looking at the stained glass windows altogether. I waited outside the chapel once for nearly 30 minutes when I heard a voice whisper, "Come in," before I'd knocked. I never entered before 11:30, never stayed past 4. The bones changed again on the 6th night. The skull had been replaced with something larger. I don't know what animal it came from, but the teeth were too human. One arm was extended forward, bones scattered in a line like it had been pointing at something before collapsing. I didn't react. I didn't speak. I wrote it down, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the figure was trying to communicate, like it was evolving for me, or warning me. That was the first night. I heard the footsteps in the bell tower. I don't know if it counts as breaking a rule if it wasn't intentional. It was the 7th night, a Thursday. I'd just finished sweeping the right side pews when I noticed something stuck beneath one of them, a folded scrap of fabric, stained dark red at the edges. At first I thought it was just garbage, maybe a remnant from one of the rituals. But when I reached for it, I caught a glimpse of something underneath. A small pendant, circular, tarnished with age. I shouldn't have picked it up. I knew I wasn't supposed to touch anything that looked like an offering, but this wasn't on the altar. It wasn't arranged like the other things had been. It looked forgotten. Dropped. Just a chain with a rusted medallion that had a crude carving of a lamb on one side, and something that looked like an eye with too many lashes on the other. As soon as my fingers brushed it, I felt cold. Not regular cold. Not like the kind you feel when you step into a basement or out into the night. This was inside, behind the skin, like it had slipped between my bones. I dropped the pendant immediately, but it was too late. The chapel had gone silent, completely. No wind, no insects. Even the groan of the wood under my boots stopped, as though the chapel were holding its breath. I turned, slowly, toward the altar. The bone figure had changed again. It was facing me now, full dash on, head tilted low, arms raised, like a puppet caught mid-performance. The pig skull was gone. In its place was the medallion I had just touched, now somehow suspended in the center of the rib cage, spinning slowly, like it had always belonged there. I didn't hear the door open, but I did hear footsteps, not from the bell tower, from behind the altar. A dragging, lurching gait. Something that moved, like it had too many legs, and not enough bones to hold them steady. I backed away. My mind raced through the rules. Had I broken one? I didn't move the bones. I didn't speak. I didn't touch anything on the altar. But maybe that was the mistake. Maybe the offering was the medallion, and it had rolled from the altar, or been discarded intentionally. Either way, I'd touched something sacred. Something claimed. The footsteps stopped. Shadow spilled out from behind the altar, like ink poured from an invisible glass. It wasn't cast by anything. It just was. Long fingers stretched into the aisle. I ran. Didn't bother to mop. Didn't wipe anything down. I didn't even shut the supply cabinet. I sprinted down the aisle, burst through the front door, and didn't stop until I reached my car. For a second, I considered leaving for good, never coming back. Let them keep the money. Let them hire someone else. But I did in single quotes too, because when I looked down at my coat, I saw something. A small, neat bundle of feathers tied with red thread, sitting on the passenger seat, waiting. No one had been in my car. I would have heard the doors. I would have seen the dome light. But there it was. A reminder, or a warning. Whatever I'd awakened, it had followed me. I went back the next night. I told myself it was just to grab my things. The mop, the gloves, the flashlight I'd left behind in my panic. But deep down, I knew I wanted something else. Answers. The chapel looked the same from the outside. Still sunken. Still. But something about the air felt wrong. Thicker, maybe. Like walking into a place that had just stopped humming a tune you weren't supposed to hear. This time, the door was closed. That meant I had to knock. 3 times. I waited. 10 seconds. No voice. No invitation. So I entered. The bone figure had been returned to its original pose, or something close to it. Pig skull restored, arms lowered. But it wasn't perfect. One arm was shorter now, missing a joint. The medallion still hung inside the ribs. I didn't touch anything. Instead, I cleaned quickly, trying to stick to the routine like it was a lifeline. But the entire time, I felt something watching me. Not the bone figure. Something higher. The stained glass window of St. Alea, the one I was told never to clean, was glowing faintly. I hadn't noticed it before. It wasn't from outside. The moon was behind the church, hidden, and yet, the figure in the glass, a bearded man with hollow eyes and a golden halo, seemed to pulse with its own dull light. I turned my back to it and kept working. Halfway through scrubbing the altar steps, I heard the sound again. Footsteps from the bell tower. Heavy, deliberate, slow. I froze. Rule number 8. Lock the cabinet and remain still. Do not look up. I moved on instinct. Ran to the cabinet, fumbled with the lock, clicked it shut. Then I crouched behind the front pew and held my breath. The steps grew louder. Not just overhead now, closer, coming down. There was no staircase to the bell tower. Just a boarded door behind the altar that never opened. But something was descending. Boards creaked. Nails shifted. The sound of weight moving down steps that shouldn't exist. I gripped the edge of the pew, bit the inside of my cheek to stay silent. Then it stopped. For a long time, nothing moved. Nothing breathed. And then just above me, past the edge of the pew, a voice whispered, "You dropped this." Something small landed beside my foot. I didn't look. I couldn't, but I recognized the shape in my periphery. The medallion. Same eye, same lamb, same cold weight. It had been in the bones the night before. Now it was in front of me again. The voice didn't match the man in the raincoat. It was higher, too calm, like it didn't belong in any human throat. I waited a full 10 minutes after the sound faded before I dared move. When I finally did, the bone figure had changed again. It was kneeling now, its spine coiled inward like a serpent, the skull lowered, and beside it on the altar was a new rule, handwritten on yellow paper, same as the others. 9. If it returns something to you, keep it. You're being marked. You're being learned. I picked up the medallion. My fingers trembled. It didn't feel cold anymore. It felt warm, like it knew I was here, and it wanted me to stay. I didn't go back the next night, or the night after. For 2 days, I stayed holed up in the auto shop, clutching that medallion like a rabbit's foot. It didn't do anything, not visibly, but I couldn't bring myself to throw it away either. I kept thinking about the voice, about how it whispered, "You dropped this," like it knew me, like it remembered. By the 3rd day, I started having dreams, always the same. I was standing in the chapel, but the pews were filled with shadows, not people, just outlines unmoving, watching. The bone figure was gone. In its place was something larger, taller, draped in feathers and wax and teeth. And above me, the bell tower creaked, but no matter how I turned, I could never look up. I told myself I'd quit, tell the man in the raincoat to find someone else, but I hadn't seen him since he handed me the rules. And deep down, I knew quitting wasn't on the table anymore. The medallion was warm again, hot even, like it was urging me back. So I returned. The chapel greeted me with silence. No wind, no movement, just that unbearable weight in the air, like the place had been waiting too. I stepped inside. Nothing immediately wrong. Bone figure hanging still, altar bare, cabinet locked. Then I noticed the floorboards behind the altar. They were different. One was shifted slightly to the side, revealing a thin seam in the floor, almost like a trapdoor. I didn't remember seeing it before. I hesitated. Then I knelt and slid it open. Beneath was a narrow hole, about 3 feet deep. Inside, wrapped in faded cloth and wax paper, was a collection of notebooks, 7 of them, bound in cracked leather. I pulled the top one out and opened it. The handwriting was tight, panicked, scrawled in smudged ink and shaky lines. The first page was dated 1997, Day 1, name's Beckett. They told me to clean the chapel. No instructions. Just show up, mop, and go. But something's wrong here. Something's watching me. Beckett. Another cleaner. I flipped through more pages. Dozens of entries, all full of dread. Notes about the bones rearranging, about the windows glowing, about voices from the bell tower, but most of all, about something called the Rememberer. The bones are just a shell. One entry read, "They're a reflection, a puppet." But the thing behind them, the one that watches through the glass, it's called the Rememberer. It doesn't punish right away. It observes, learns. It tests obedience, not for cruelty, for worthiness. That word sent a chill through me. Another entry, dated months later. I think I passed the test. It gave me something, a ring made of teeth. It wants me to stay, to serve. I don't know what happens if I refuse. The later entries became less coherent, repetitive, like Beckett was unraveling. I tried to leave, made it halfway down the mountain. The road kept looping. I passed the same rock 3 times. Same dead deer, same shadow in the trees. I'm not the cleaner anymore. I'm part of it now. A limb, a thought. The Rememberer told me things. About the church before it was a church. About what lived here beneath the roots. I sat back against the pew, notebook in hand, heart thudding. The rules weren't just arbitrary. They were a kind of contract, a behavioral test. Obey and survive. disobey, and be seen differently. Beckett wasn't just a cleaner, he was a predecessor, maybe even a prototype. I opened another notebook. This one was different, titled only Offerings Accepted / Offerings Rejected. Inside, a careful log, dates, descriptions, and what was done with each. Asterisk, April 5th, bird skull, broken beak, rejected, burned on altar. May 12th, lamb medallion, intact, accepted, hung in bone chest. June 3, skin bundle with teeth, accepted, buried beneath pews. That was the medallion. It had been offered before, accepted, then somehow returned to me because I touched it, because I broke a rule, and because the rememberer decided. I was interesting. In the final pages of the logbook, there were references to a secondary test, something only initiated once a cleaner had broken a rule, but survived. The second phase begins when it gives you back what you shouldn't have taken. From that point on, it watches more closely. It listens to your thoughts. The bones shift not as warnings, but as messages. Messages. I looked back at the figure. That night, it was curled inward, spine coiled like a snake. The skull tilted, down, not up. Hands pressed together as if in prayer. What was it praying for? Or to? I didn't clean that night. I sat in the pews and read until 3:58 a.m. Then I heard the bell. Not a chime, not a gong. A single toll, low, cracked, like metal, moaning through stone. And I swear, it wasn't from above. It came from beneath the floor. The next night was storm dark and cold. The mountain road to the chapel was slick with rain, and my cousin's truck kept skidding on the turns. Halfway there, I nearly convinced myself to turn back. But the moment I thought it, I felt the medallion in my pocket twitch. Not shift, twitch. As if it disagreed by the time I arrived. The air was so thick with static that my skin prickled. The chapel door was open, wide. I froze, staring. At the gaping entry, Rule 6 pulsed in my mind like a heartbeat. If the door is open when you arrive, knock 3 times and wait 10 seconds before entering. If you hear someone say come in, leave, and return in 1 hour. I approached slowly, knelt just outside the threshold, knocked once, twice, 3 times, waited 1 second, 2. On the 4th, a voice whispered, no louder than the wind, come in. I didn't move, didn't breathe, but something moved inside. It wasn't the bone figure. That was gone. The altar was bare. The pews were soaked in candle wax, and the stained glass window of St. Elia was glowing bright this time. A golden hue that spilled onto the floor like sunlight, except it was well past midnight. I turned away, and that's when I heard the footsteps. Not from the bell tower, not from behind the altar, from every direction, soft, wet, slapping sounds, like bare feet against stone. I gripped the medallion in my pocket and stepped inside. At once, the door slammed shut behind me, and then, nothing. Silence, for several seconds. Then the bones screamed. Not a human scream, not even an animal scream. It came from the walls, from the ceiling, from the floor. 1,000 voices made of marrow and dust, howling through the beams of the chapel. The altar cracked straight down the middle. From the split, a long black shape began to rise. At first, I thought it was a shadow, a trick of the light. But then, it stretched upward, tall, impossibly thin, its surface moving like paper soaked in oil. No face, no limbs, just an impression, a presence. It was the rememberer. The bones had been its proxy. Now it no longer needed the puppet. It wanted me. I ran, but I didn't make it far. The pews were wrong, stretched, twisted, rearranged so that the aisles no longer led to the exit, but coiled inward, like a maze folding in on itself. Every step forward brought me closer to the altar. Every time I looked back, the thing had grown. Now it filled the chapel, its body pressed against the ceiling, tendrils extended from its torso, not touching the ground, but pulling at it, warping it, and all the while, the stained glass window pulsed. I made it to the supply cabinet, flung it open, and crouched inside. It wasn't protection, I knew that, but it was the only thing I could do. In the back corner, wedged behind the mop bucket, was a box I hadn't seen before. Old wood, wax sealed. On the top, a single line carved in Latin, Mimi Nesti, ergo servis, you remember, therefore, you serve. My hand moved on its own. I opened it. Inside were relics, offerings, maybe from cleaners before me. A pair of glasses melted into bone, a wedding ring made of braided hair, a tooth too long to be human, wrapped in velvet, and below it all, a second medallion, identical to mine, except this one was broken, cracked straight down the center, and beneath that, a page. Same handwriting as the rule list. If you've opened this, you've been chosen. It knows your thoughts. It's shaped itself around you. If you refuse, it will erase you. Not kill. Erase. As if you never existed. Something banged against the cabinet, not the doors. The back wall. A thud that rattled the shelves. Then another. I held both medallions tight in my hand. Mine and the broken one. And then, without knowing why, I placed the broken one on the floor of the cabinet. The chapel groaned. Outside the cabinet, the world twisted. The wood of the pews stretched like wax in heat. The stained glass window exploded in color. Not shards, but a blooming kaleidoscopic burst that washed over the walls like a new sky. And the rememberer stopped. Its form buckled, collapsed, poured backward into the altar crack like water slipping through a drain. The screaming bones fell silent, and I was alone again, alive, but changed. Because in that moment, I understood something Beckett had written, but never explained. The writ wasn't here to punish, it was here to transform. And I had passed another test. Or maybe, I'd just become a part of it. I didn't sleep the next day. Not really. I laid on the cot in the back of the auto shop, the medallion still warm in my hand. The broken one tucked into my jacket pocket like a fragment of someone else's life. Something had shifted after that night in the chapel. Yes, but also in me. I no longer felt like an outsider in that building. I felt seen, and when I looked in the mirror, I noticed something subtle. My reflection blinked just a moment too late, as if my body moved before I did. That night, I didn't drive straight to the chapel. I took a detour, a strange instinct guiding me down the back roads near the ridge, where the forest thickens and the fog crawls low across the gravel. I was looking for him, the man in the raincoat, and I found him, standing at the edge of a field, smoking a cigarette beneath a leaning pine tree. Same coat, same yellow eyes, except he wasn't surprised to see me. He exhaled a cloud of smoke and said, "So, it chose you." I didn't answer. He continued, "How far did it go? Did it take shape yet?" "I saw it," I said. I saw what's behind the bones." He nodded, slowly. "Then you're almost through." "Through what?" He turned to look at me. "Really look at me this time. I used to clean it too," he said. "Back in '89, I was just like you. Desperate, hungry, didn't ask questions." He paused, flicked his cigarette into the mud, and then one night, it changed. The rules stopped being rules. They became vows. "You wrote them," I said. "The list, the Latin, that was all you." "I didn't write the rules," he said. "I translated them." I stared. "They're not meant for us," he continued. "They're ancient, left behind by the ones who came before memory, before language." He took a small book from his coat pocket and handed it to me. Same cracked leather as Beckett's journals. Inside, dozens of pages of sketches, bone formations, altar patterns, diagrams of human nervous systems overlaid with animal skulls. At the bottom of every page, the same symbol, a circle filled with a spiral of lashes, the same as the medallion. He stepped back. "I didn't quit," he said. I was released when I passed the final trial. Then why are you still here? Because once you pass, you become part of the system. A keeper, a translator, a watcher. I stayed behind to prepare the next one. My blood went cold. You picked me. He nodded. I knew from the moment you touched the medallion. That's what it wanted. Someone curious. Someone broken enough to listen. I stepped away from him. You let people die, I said. You let Beckett go insane. You knew. I warned them, he replied. Every cleaner got the same list. Same chance. I wanted to hit him, yell, but I didn't. Because deep down, I wasn't angry at him. I was angry at myself. Because he was right. I'd had the chance to leave. I'd felt the wrongness, heard the warnings, and I stayed. Because part of me wanted to belong to it. I passed the second phase, I said quietly. What happens now? He smiled, not kindly. You're nearly ready for the offering. I didn't know what that meant yet, but when I looked down at the medallion, now glowing faintly, I realized something horrible. The shape inside the circle wasn't just a design, it was an eye, and it was open. The offering, that's what he called it. I asked him what it meant. He wouldn't tell me, only said I'd know when the time came, and that I had a choice. Not every offering is the same, he said. It shapes it around you. Then he handed me one final thing, a blank page. It'll write itself when the moment comes, he told me. You'll know where to leave it. That night, I drove to the chapel like I was heading to a funeral, my own. The door was closed when I arrived, but something was different. The windows, all of them were glowing now, not just St. Elias. Every single stained pane buzzed with pale light, like the building itself was awake. I knocked 3 times. No answer. I entered. The altar was gone. In its place, a hole, a perfect circle carved into the floor, 5 feet across, deep, black, bottomless, and above it, suspended in the air, the bone figure, not hanging, not wired, just floating. Its arms were open wide, like it was inviting me in. I walked slowly, clutching the blank page in my hand. Something was behind me. I could feel it, hear it, a soft shuffle, like dragging cloth. I didn't turn around. Instead, I stepped to the edge of the hole and looked. Down. I expected nothing, or maybe darkness, but I saw myself standing in the pews, looking up, blank expression, empty eyes. Then it shifted, and I saw versions of me, dozens, hundreds, in different clothes, different ages. One of them was Beckett. One was the man in the raincoat. One was just a child, all staring up, waiting. Then I heard the voice. Not outside, inside me. You are the sum of what was offered before you. Now you offer yourself. My hands moved. I held the blank page to my chest, and slowly, words began to appear, not written with ink, but carved into the fibers of the paper, like scars forming on skin. To serve is to be remembered. To refuse is to be forgotten. I understood now. The offering wasn't death. It was decision to become part of the chapel, part of the rules, the bones, the system, or to vanish completely. A cleaner, or a whisper. The rememberer didn't kill it, absorbed. I thought of all the signs, the dreams, the mirrored eye, the medallion, the notebooks left behind. They weren't warnings. They were breadcrumbs, leading me here. I looked into the pit again. Now, there was only one version of me left, and it was reaching up. I stepped back. I folded the page, and I walked to the cabinet and placed it inside, beneath the mop bucket, where I had once found the offering box. I closed the door, and I walked away. Out the door, into the cold, past the trees. The chapel didn't stop. Me, no bones screamed. No voices called. No light flickered. It let me go, and I think that was the final test. I haven't gone back since. Weeks passed. I threw away the medallion, burned the clothes I wore that night, quit the job, and yet, something lingers. My reflection still hesitates. There's always a half-second delay before it moves. A flicker of doubt, a moment where it steadies me before obeying. I've tried to ignore it, tell myself I'm free, that I walked away, that I passed whatever test the chapel gave me. But last night, something arrived on my porch. A mop. My mop. The same cracked handle. Same faded red tape I wrapped around it. It was wet, smelled like the chapel. And beneath it was a note, folded tight. No envelope. Just the same scar-like text, carved into the paper. You cannot leave what remembers you. The bones rearranged again. I didn't sleep. I stared at the mop until sunrise. At exactly 6:44 a.m., I heard 3 knocks at the door. I didn't answer, but I knew what was waiting. Not the figure, not Beckett. Me. Another version of me. The one I left behind in the pit. And it had waited long enough. I packed a bag, drove through the morning fog, back through the woods, past the hanging branches. The chapel was waiting. The lights were already on. Inside, nothing had changed except one thing. On the altar sat a new notebook, blank, fresh, untouched, a pen beside it, and above, carved into the stained glass of St. Elia's window, no longer an image of the saint, was a face. My face. Hollow eyes. Golden halo. Staring down, watching. I stepped forward, picked up the pen, and as I sat at the front pew, I began to write. Rule 1. Always knock 3 times before entering. Rule 2. Do not touch the bones unless they move first. Rule 3. They're not my rules. Not really. I'm just remembering them, like I was told. Because someone always has to write them down, and someone always has to clean up after what comes next.